Another game means another review. This time the game is Devil World for the Famicom and European NES. Devil World is a first-generation Famicom game that is technically a fixed-screen game, but in reality it's more like a scrolling fixed-screen game. Yeah, don't worry, I'll explain what I mean. Released in late 1984, Devil World is a simple but fun action puzzle game akin to Pac-Man, but is most notably remembered for the fact that it is the sole Shigeru Miyamoto masterpiece for the Famicom not to be released in the North American market. Why was this? All shall be explained over the course of this review. Premise. The premise of Devil World is to clear each stage by collecting all the white pellets scattered about. To collect the pellets, you must first obtain a holy cross or a Bible. Doing this also allows you to breathe fire and kill enemies. Story. Tamagon, a small green dragon, grows hungry and decides to attack the Devil's World in search of eggs. Once he enters this realm, the Devil, king of the demons, commands his minions to stop Tamagon at any cost. Not the most in-depth story ever, but hey, it works. 7 out of 10. Graphics. As an early Famicom title, the graphics are both simple and sparsely detailed. Sprites are small but colorful, and absolutely every character, including the Devil, whom could have been made static, have several frames of animation that are fluid in their movements. 7.5 out of 10. Audio. Devil World has a small ditty that plays when you first start the game, but other than that, there's very little in the way of sound appeal. Throughout most of the game, the players will hear the game's simple but effective sound effects. The sound effects themselves are a little repetitive and a tad annoying if you play them too loudly, but overall, things are not that bad. One notable sound effect is where the player hatches from an egg after dying. This egg hatching sound effect would later be reused in the SNES mega hit Super Mario World as Yoshi hatches. 6 out of 10. Gameplay. What keeps the game from being a glorified Pac-Man clone is the added element of strategy that is included with the ever-changing environment. The Devil sets what is essentially a cage around you, and by moving it up, down, left, or right, he tries to kill you by crushing you against something. It is because the screen shifts and the walls remain fixed that you will have to continually be on the move, lest you be crushed between the wall and the scrolling screen. Even with this unique take on the single-screen formula working in its favor, this alone still doesn't change the fact that Devil World is a rather simple game that borrows heavily from Pac-Man. Despite how hard the game tries to distance itself from its well-known cousin, whenever I play Devil World, I think I'm playing some version of Pac-Man instead. I give the gameplay a 7. Control. Devil World is a simple game to control. Just like Pac-Man, your character moves automatically. The player is left to simply adjust the course by pressing the D-pad in a different direction. When you have a cross or Bible, tapping the A button will cause your character to breathe fire and you can kill nearby enemies. To my knowledge, B doesn't do anything. As usual with these sorts of games, the start button pauses the game, and select is goggles. It does nothing! Fun factor. Devil World demands a little bit more strategy than Pac-Man does, and this adds to the fun. Devil World can be played in single-player or in two-player co-op. With a second player, it can be easier to eliminate enemies, collect all the pellets, and proceed through the game faster than could be done in single-player. However, there are a few things to watch out for with the addition of the second player. Breathing fire on your partner leads them to freeze for a few seconds, preventing them from moving. You also have to make sure you don't get crushed by going a different way than the other player. Devil World's simply a fun game. 8 out of 10. Frustration. Because of the small life pool each player starts with and the complexity of some of the later mazes, Devil World can be a moderately frustrating game. Because you need a Bible or a cross to attack enemies, and since the Bible or cross dissipates after a time, you can be cut off by an approaching enemy and be inevitably killed by either an enemy or crushed between the walls because you simply can't reach the Bible or cross. This is the same sort of thing that happens in Pac-Man when two ghosts come at you from two different directions and you have nowhere to escape without a power pill. 7 out of 10. System availability. The original Devil World is available for the Japanese Famicom and European NES. Beyond these, though, there have been relatively few ports. It's on the Japanese Virtual Console, but that isn't likely to be released elsewhere. Price. Devil World is a fairly cheap game. The Famicom version is a little bit more common than the NES PAL version, so I'd say that would probably be costing somewhere between $10 to $20, depending on condition. The PAL NES version is a little bit more uncommon, and I've seen it range anywhere between $15 all the way up to $40, so it's best to check prices before you commit to a buy. Alright, now time for the history. Devil World is notoriously known as a game that was not released for the North American NES. The reason? During the early years of Nintendo's presence in America, they were very image-oriented. Nintendo wanted people to associate their games with thoughts of clean, family-friendly, wholesome values. Also keep in mind, in these days, video games were not yet rated. To ensure all games met the family-friendly level Nintendo was after, one of the policies they enforced on developers, including themselves, was the general rule not to include any form of religious reference in video games, in fear that it would unintentionally offend a particular religious group. Devil World, with its title, content, and lighthearted attitude towards its religious basis, was thus a game that failed to meet the guidelines and was not released for the North American market. The European market was not so tightly regulated in these matters, so the PAL version was released there anyway. Looking back on Devil World now, it might seem kind of strange that a harmless little title was not released merely because of its limited potential to cause a small controversy, but it's a perfect example of the state Nintendo of America was in during the latter half of the 1980s. So, the recap. Overall, good. Devil World is a unique puzzle game that is fun to play with two players and has an interesting history. Overall, bad. Devil World is essentially a Pac-Man clone and isn't quite as fun as the game it's emulating. It also doesn't have quite the lasting appeal as some of the other games that were released in its day. Conclusion. With all things considered, Devil World is a fairly unremarkable Famicom game, and only collectors and real Famicom enthusiasts should check it out. Overall, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. It's not a bad game by any means, but it hasn't aged as well as many of its cousins have, and its limited availability makes it difficult for me to truly recommend it when there are so many other better Famicom classics out there. Sorry, Devil World. With another review completed, it's time for my closing comments. As always, please let me know what you think of my review. Viewers are welcomed and encouraged to leave questions or comments regarding this game. If you like this review, please give it a 5-star rating and subscribe to my channel. You'll be seeing a lot of reviews from me in the future. On the next classic gaming review, I'll be reviewing Akuma Jo Dracula, the Japanese version of Castlevania 1 for the Famicom. Thanks for watching.